Before the flood, the continents were together in a Pangea-like configuration. Modern geology's so-called mega-sequences also confirm this progressive inundation. Many mega-sequences contain sandstone at the bottom and sedimentary formations with decreasing grain sizes above it. Evolutionary geologists believe that mega-sequences represent 6 massive flooding events that happened over millions of years, but creation geologists believe they were stacked like pancakes over just days or weeks by numerous tsunami waves during the year-long flood. We can even confirm this process from recorded examples in recent history, where subduction caused tsunamis laid down layers formed by the water coming and going. The tsunamis that were occurring in cycles during the flood provide a good insight as to why human fossils are so rare. Much of the pre-flood world has been mapped today using 3,000 stratigraphic columns around the world that show the thickness and extent of these mega-sequences. They also reveal that the highest pre-flood elevations were likely only 3,000 to 4,000 feet. These maps show exactly what we would expect given the biblical description of the flood. They reveal that the shallow seas were filled in first by the earliest deposits, and the lowlands and uplands were later overcome as the water level increased as described in Genesis 7. The first 3 mega-sequences buried the shallow seas that existed across several continents. Fossil records show that these early flood sediments contain almost exclusively shallow marine plants and animals, with very few trees or land animals in their earliest mega-sequences. These layers were likely deposited during the first 40 days of the flood. We can also see an area in the central USA that ICR refers to as the Dinosaur Peninsula, where the dinosaurs made their last stand. This peninsula shows almost no early flood sedimentation from the first 3 mega-sequences. It was likely a lowland and swampy region. The lowland areas, like Dinosaur Peninsula, were swamped next with the 4th mega-sequence, the Absaroka. This mega-sequence produced waves that deposited sediments onto the land as water levels continued to rise, burying the lowland and coastal wetland areas, such as the Karoo supergroup across much of southern Africa and the Coconino sandstone that stretches across the southwestern US. This mega-sequence is responsible for laying down the first major coal deposits, such as the Pennsylvanian lycopod forests. We also find land animals mixed with marine creatures and plants at this level, indicating the flood was impacting significant amounts of pre-flood land, including parts of the Dinosaur Peninsula. This explains why the first dinosaur fossils are also found at this level globally. Now we're likely between 40 and 90 days of the flood. Next comes the 5th mega-sequence, the Zuni. The Zuni completely destroys the lowlands and the dinosaurs. Even the Dinosaur Peninsula gets swamped at this point, along with most of the highest hills. Here, we're at day 150, and all animals, including all humans not on the ark, were dead. The maps show that all of the mega-sequences thin out towards the shield areas on all continents, implying they were deposited on the flanks of these topographic highs. These shields are exposed crystalline crust areas that are likely remnants of pre-flood uplands. Most don't have sedimentary rock, because erosion after the flood stripped away sediment layers deposited earlier by the flood. Genesis 7:20 states that the highest hills were flooded by only about 22 feet of water, so thick sedimentary deposits could not build up. The 6th and final mega-sequence, the Tejas, shows fossils of the plants and animals of the uplands areas that existed in the pre-flood world. Most of these are large mammals, birds, flowering plants, and any human fossils. This is because some pre-flood humans likely survived until day 150 and congregated on the highest ground possible. As the water levels peaked, the remaining humans would have drowned and been washed away in all directions and many out to sea. Unlike many animals, their remains would not likely be found clustered together or buried deep enough in sediment for preservation as fossils. Not only does this process explain why human fossils are not found with dinosaur fossils, it explains why dinosaurs are not found in the earliest flood rocks laid down by the first 3 mega-sequences. They simply lived in different pre-flood locations. with the first 3 megasequences mostly flooding shallow seas. Dinosaurs were not overcome until the 4th and 5th megasequence, when the lowlands began flooding about day 40 of the flood. In fact, all of the major subdivisions of the fossil record are best explained in terms of a progressive flood. This is quite obvious because the marine fossils are found in the earliest layers, followed by plants and animals from the lowland environments, including dinosaurs. It's only on top of these layers where we find the plants and animals from the pre-flood uplands, which include many of the larger mammals and any human remains. This, along with their separate habitats, explains why no lions, tigers, bears, or cows got buried with dinosaurs. What's really telling is the fact that all of the continents exhibit the same basic geological pattern. This global pattern requires a global explanation. How else can we explain all the continents showing the same patterns of inundation at the same time and burying the same fossils at the same levels? The global flood described in Genesis gives us the best answer. Given all of this evidence, we think it's quite obvious that humans were wiped off the face of the earth during the flood. Mainstream geology even admits to a worldwide flood, but calls it something different: the late Cretaceous transgression, evidenced by the buckling and folding of the continents that pushed 50% of these fossil-bearing layers higher than the current sea level could have done. The facts that the fossils are pushed higher than the sea level could have covered, and that they're on buckled and folded mountains, actually supports the biblical flood. But more on this later.